the third section, which is my research finding, which is the call of the today's lecture of what I put the title of my jazz lecture note, but the core is this sections. Many have looked at jazz improvisation from its outcome, which is how complete is the music, but very few mention about the importance of jazz as process, which shall be aimed, attempt, and enjoy equally as the final acoustic outcome. Within the searching quality of sound in jazz improvisation this is very particularly unique. The paradox of jazz improvisation may lie in the desire to manage both the searching quality of sound and the completeness of the final outcome at the same time. While the searching quality by nature necessitates incompleteness as the outcome is non-deterministic. Once the final outcome is complete, jazz improvisation cease, meaning mati. And this is observed in many performances where students players perform a rigidly and rigorously rehearsed solo copy from recording. Rigidly and rigorously rehearsed solo. Oh, that's my student, isn't it? I always prepare them for that. Why? Because it looks good at the end. But as educator, as researcher, there is always one fundamental question is, what is jazz? And have you taught your student what is jazz? Or you taught them something else? I have a lot of thoughts on the arguments of the purpose of education and the means has become the end in education. For example, classical music. So many of you learn piano. What is the purpose? To appreciate music, to present the ideology or the idioms in the music. If it is Debussy, we want to see that impressionist things, picture happen through sound. No. In Malaysia, what it is? To take graded exam. So that's been the means become an end. So, music teacher, what is music and have you taught them music? So it's very fundamental questions. But if you think of these fundamental questions, you may teach things differently. Be very careful. Once you start to think deeper, people will think you are weird. That's in Malaysia. And you yourself may become non-conformist. So even in jazz, when I think about what is a real jazz in terms of philosophically, then playing the right chords and right time may not be so important than to be able to have this sense of authenticity of the student in performing searching qualities. But how to get that happen? Now, I want to share, so this is a journey, some episode of a journey with one of the students. I only use initial, AG. So this is my diary with AG. Not diary with AG, my diary of teaching of AG, but I orchestrated it a bit to show how I managed to, not I managed, but as a process, AG has moved from merely complying to a more authentic way of expressing herself. So the first note reads June 2001, the third week after the academic year has begun. It is unusual for the department and excited for me to have a student majored in jazz. He looked at ease with playing without score. What shall I teach him? To what level shall he progress to? What is the level of jazz performance at bachelor level? And all these things. Now the next note is July, 1 month later. It is extremely difficult for these students to play anything that could sound like jazz. They came without any knowledge about what jazz is, and neither have they listened to any jazz music. Many of them actually, their prior experience is Disney. Oh my god. Yeah, their jazz is in Disney. In addition, they were so limited with their chords. Yeah, they are not free with their chord. When will they become familiarized with their chord? The end of semester? I wonder. When will they ever start to improvise? It's a long wait. Am I doing the right thing? Are they learning in the right pace as undergraduate music students? Ini keluhan lah, keluhan pengajar. Okay, February 2007. So about half a year passed by. Frustrated, how can I get them start sounding a bit like jazz? This means students sounds very funny. When asked to improvise, they sounded at odd with the style, to say the least. Where did that kindergarten phrase come from? No offense, yeah, this is teacher's mind talking. How good are they to jeopardize the music and were able to do it without feeling? So insensitive. Where did that odd rhythms come from? That's not all, by the way. Where can I get them to swing decently? Despite of years of working together, the seams just can't swing. The typo, can't, not can. But at least play an equal triplet if you can't swing. Is there anything that can be worse than this? It's a bit like, yeah, teaching somebody to speak Mandarin, something like that, who doesn't have a background speaking in Mandarin when he was young, maybe. It's all about culture, isn't it? So July 2009, at last I have a group of students who are capable in hearing and playing. I have told them clearly our target is to be able to play Bob licks. Haha, Bob licks. And that internalization of phrases during improvisation is important. Improvisation should sound like one speaking from his or her heart instead of mechanically reiterating the same phrases that they have learned. But why it has not been progressing? They seem to not like working with written licks. I give them written licks they don't like. What's lick? Those things like those things. Of course, you force somebody to wear clothes that he doesn't like to wear, isn't it? Chord practice also scare them away. This is something that I do not understand. They will also show very slow in playing their self-composed lick. Are they reluctant to do so? But how are they going to improve if they do not explore and try to write different versions of licks? They will be running out of ideas when they improvise. Furthermore, so close to like 1 year after teaching, I do not know what's wrong with this student. He seems intelligent and is of a critical mind. Musically, he is capable. I have overheard him more than one time, and he was casually strolling the piano between classes. It was creative and full of ideas, but he has problem with his major study, his jazz piano performance. He just could not do it freely. I know he tried very hard, and he has always been. He's neither rhythmically weak nor technically handicapped. He's stuck with his jazz piano. He showed very little progress despite of working hard. I have tried several times to explain to him all these necessary features needed to play jazz, like the swing groove, the comping, the licks, the expression, and so on. He seems extremely pressured and frustrated with his progress as well. He's not enjoying learning jazz as he was supposed to. Doesn't matter about the gender here because we are using initial anyway. Now, after some time, this is the first lesson of the semester after student returned from attending Penang Jazz Festival. Basically, there is a change when I brought the student to attend Jazz Festival together. While the memory and the joy of the Jazz Festival was still fresh, we started the lesson. He played Girl from Ipanema in Bossa Nova, thinking that is the time for him to play away from ordinary ballroom jazz style. I started a wham on the bass using a chromatic motif with an alternative rock feel. So basically, I myself be more flexible and not stick to what the usual style of jazz. And he has been watching various kind of contemporary jazz in the festival which play outside the standard jazz idiom. But basically, if you know Penang Jazz Festival, there's a lot of rock influence there, which also has become the target of criticism by some. But that is what it is. European influence, sometimes atonal music, sometimes rock. You can hear it from Penang Jazz. But this particular student has some blood in rock, I think. So it fits well. So I say you can disregard the chords and forms and play as you like, just like one of those in festival. So one thing good about Penang Jazz Festival is everybody is playing out of the box. So when you go there, it's like, huh? What are they doing? That kind of things. And that's also the target of criticism. A lot of people saying it's not jazz. But what is jazz actually, after all? Immediately, she clicked to it. After a few urge to secure his courage, sorry, I've been using his, so his courage, ensuring that he can really do what he wants, including non-jazz. He has become a master magician of his own, exploring different tone colors and tonality on the piano. Basically, I just say this student transformed and start to play in his own style. The improvisation go on and on as long as 15 minutes. So that is the moment happened in class. I have this moment. When the moment happened in the class, as a teacher, I'm very happy. But normally student will say, will have this kind of feedback after you play. It's like, huh? What happened just now? It seems like not me, that kind of things. So the moment has come. So I have a video to show. So I will put it as different clips for you to enjoy. Now this is the student. Okay, keep the privacy of the student. If you watch, it's only for education purpose. Now if I scroll through the video, you can see there is this scene in the department and the daytime, and this one, the student is playing at the night time during a jazz live. So I contrast this daytime and nighttime. The one taken in daytime is the earlier time before the student transform, where he mainly play by compliance, and the recording at the night time, playing Take the A Train and Girl from Ipanema, is something that the student is kind of like enlightened. So I want you to listen to this, and you will notice not only that the student is more confident, but the music is different. So it actually also challenged the teacher. Would you accept this kind of outcome? Sometimes it's very hard to judge. If the student go very creative, they come the other side of the coin. Very risky. So I have already got, for that particular students, 2 different examiners. Both are prominent jazz pianists. One give very high marks and one give very low marks. Obviously, one is focusing on authenticity in being creative, being himself, but the other one is looking at strict compliance of technicality. So in conclusion, so I come to the conclusion. If you are still with me, congratulations. I know it's very long. I hope this can spark up something in you. There seems to be 2 contrasting thoughts about what jazz improvisation is. One emphasizes the tradition of swing and modern jazz, and see jazz improvisation as creating new lines within the set of principles that involves chord progressions, the elements of blues and swing, the bob licks, and the typical way tones are produced. These are all the things that I teach in jazz improvisation. The other thought about jazz improvisation is based on the continuous move or the underlying drive throughout the history of jazz development that can be categorized as non-conformism. syncretism, playing the outside, the sound of surprise, and so on. If you look at the history of jazz, it begins with New Orleans. It was marching music, turned into ragtime. You got all this King Oliver ragtime band and all this. Then get into swing, dancing, kind of swing, the early swing, swing piano. Then get into big band. From big band, you get into experimental, modern jazz. Then within that you got cool jazz, you got hard bop, and Latin also come into it. You can see jazz keep changing. So if you want to say the spirit of jazz is keep changing and playing out of the box, eventually jazz will play out of its own box, isn't it? So in 1970s, there's come fusion jazz, rock take more center stage, so jazz has really changed. And acid jazz, hip hops are actually the grandchildren of jazz, of the blacks. They are no longer called jazz. So in a way, the evolution of jazz is still going on, but they're no longer called jazz. Those elements are there. So if we are teaching jazz, then do we teach the principle of jazz, of what jazz is, or are we sticking as jazz as a kind of history? That means, do you play jazz as classical, or you play jazz as jazz? That's my big problems. But one more thing, sorry, I'm very talkative. Just bear with me. What does all this mean to Malaysian? My point is simply that, hey, we Malaysian, we don't have the history in US. Our town, our histories, our immigrant society, by immigrants, I'm talking about myself. I mean, we are ex-immigrants, descendants, right? All this, we have our own history, own social thing, and then our own sensitivity, our own sentiment of looking at things. So yes, we like jazz, we like to play jazz, but we will take jazz with our own sensibility. Is it okay? It should be. It should be that way, isn't it? So we need to think this absolute standard of jazz. When we apply in the Malaysian climax, there's a lot of things to consider. So we cannot just simply take a Malaysian student, or just you and me, and say, oh, we play jazz and there shouldn't be a problem, just like you're taking a medicine and it will work universally. No, there's a lot of things to consider. Do you accept this kind of music? And if you play, do you really play as jazz, or actually it's okay just to take whatever makes sense to you and understand it in your way to keep your music original? Just one final talk. You know Chen Hui? In a way, you can say he is a jazz violinist, highly acclaimed. Your senior, right? Now in New York. But you listen to his music, you can buy a CD. It's very different. But he's one of the most authentic players that I have ever seen. No doubt he's a jazz player, but he himself said, no, I'm not jazz player. So what did he play? He has a lot of rock features in his playing, but his music, his playing is very experimental. But I think what is good with Chen Hui is he never cared to comply anything that he cannot comply, or he doesn't want to comply. He also did very, oh no, I shouldn't say this. This is public view. So I will stop here. So that is this whole talk about my jazz lecture note. I think the message is, the content is still very relevant up till today. Very few of us, when we talk about playing jazz, teaching jazz, we think in this way. But it's really necessary, because otherwise you will be teaching another ABRSM that make jazz another examination subject. So thank you. See you.